Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of the 26th of February, 2018. Let us all rise for a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get going, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Troop 30, Boy Scout Troop 30 with us today. All right, in accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of business of the Lincoln City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call the first item of business?
Yes, we would request those giving testimony to please clearly state your name and address and to sign in on the sign-in sheet laying on the podium. Our first item of business is our public hearing consent agenda. These are items 1 through 10.
I believe we have some folks here who are being appointed to the Examination Board of Plumbers. Would you please come forward? Come on forward, both of you. There's 2 microphones. Okay. Please introduce yourselves.
Paul Johnson, address 2815 Southwest 78th Street, Lincoln.
Very good.
Nathan Sanks, 8010 Glen Oaks Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, welcome. Tell us about your appointment to the Examining Board of Plumbers.
I am to reappoint, I guess, to the Water Conditioning Board of Plumbers. So I've been on this, or had this role since 2011, okay. And just it's a reappointment of the same position as far as the water conditioning exams.
Very good. And Mr. Johnson?
You won't be able to read this.
Okay.
I'm nervous.
Okay. So what's your role on the board?
I was asked to serve as, I guess, a gas expert, gas piping expert. I work for Black Hills Energy. I've had a master mechanical license, gas fitters license for about 25 years. I also served for a short stint as building and safety mechanical official. So.
Very good. Are there questions for these gentlemen? Well, thank you for your willingness to serve. Really, really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, and we also have Mr. Miller being appointed to the Mayor's Multicultural Advisory Committee. Please come forward, sir.
Hello. Mitch Miller, 4300 South 38th Street, Lincoln.
Okay. Do you have questions for Mr. Miller? Well, tell us about your experience and what motivates you to want to be on the board.
Well, I want to give back to the community and been looking into different advisory and maybe being a mentor and stuff in the past. And I'm on another board in Lincoln, the League of Human Dignity board, on that board. And somebody had mentioned, and there was an opening with this one, and I said that I would be interested in helping out.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
You bet.
Okay. Would you like to say
Other
something?
questions?
Just quickly, Kimberly Taylor Riley at the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights, and Mr. Miller has agreed to come on board and assist us with filling the position that was vacated by Pearl Van Zant when she retired about the middle part of last year. I guess it's been about 6 months or so. So we've been looking for someone to fill in that spot. We like to keep a lot of diversity on that committee, so we are hopeful that you will go ahead and appoint Mr. Miller to the MAC.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Was there anyone else who would like to speak on any of the items on the consent agenda? Next item, please.
All right, if not, we can vote on these items. Items 1 and 2 were introduced by Eskridge.
Second. Moved by Carl, seconded by Jane. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold? Yes. Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Then items 4 through 8 were introduced by Gaylor Baird.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Larry and seconded by Carl. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
7-0. Next then are our public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward, raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. I'll call items 11 and 12 together. They are the application of Blaze Pizza for a Class I liquor license at 1317 Q Street, Suites 170 and 180, and the related manager application of Catherine Goff. Would you raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you. Just state your names and addresses.
Paul McCray, 17057 Weir Street, Omaha.
Catherine Goff, 11915 Jackson Road, Omaha.
Okay, please tell us about your applications.
We just opened up Blaze Restaurant. It was about a week ago on 1317 Q Street. And Blaze Pizza serves limited liquor, it's just beer and wine, so.
Okay, are there questions? Cindy?
How'd your free pizza day go?
Oh my gosh.
Phenomenal. Over 1,400.
We lined up at 9:30 and it didn't stop until 11 PM. So 9:30 AM to 11 PM, clear to Buffalo Wild Wings.
We love our pizza in Lincoln, no doubt about it. Good job, thank you.
All right, other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on these items? Thank you. Next item, please.
All right, next I'll call items 13 and 14. They are the application of Lady Luck Lounge for a Class C liquor license at 1332 P Street and the related manager application of Chad Carlson. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. State your names and
Chad
addresses.
Carlson, 6820 Ashbrook Drive.
Lyle Wheeler, 1809 Southwest Derrick Avenue.
Okay, please tell us about your applications.
We are doing a small lounge speakeasy type bar on 1332 P Street, 27 seats in it. And yeah, it's actually not going to be a normal speakeasy. We're going to do a 1950s, 60s Rat Pack Sinatra type feel. You know, so you'll be walking into like a illegal gambling room type feel in there. Just a loungy, comfortable, kind of high-end cocktail bar.
Okay, questions? Carl?
Is this, you're here also with Stogie's, right?
Yes, and
So-
Misty's. I own Misty's restaurants.
That's right.
And
Yes.
Stogie's, and yes.
Okay.
So
So,
this lounge is so Stogie's is on the front, on the P Street side.
Right.
This speakeasy will be off the back through the alley behind the Larson building.
and they'll be physically separated?
Correct.
Can you see
There'll be no
one into the
entrance.
other?
Yeah, there's no
Okay.
entrance other than the alley to enter one, and they're separate facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Would anyone else like to speak to these items? Next item, please.
Chair, I would like to move approval of items 11, 13, and 14.
Second.
In fact, why don't I just make it 13 and 14? And then
Okay.
we'll come back to the other two.
Want to do 11 and 12 separate?
Correct.
Okay.
So let's do 13 and 14 first, and then
Okay.
I'll separate the
Okay,
other two.
that's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Then I'd like to move approval of item 11.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Lyrian. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And then finally, approval of item 12.
Needed a second, please?
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Cindy. Discussion.
I'm going to vote no on this manager application for the reason of the recent arrest for DUI. And that's really just because I want to see that folks who are being approved for manager applications for liquor license are taking drinking and driving really seriously. And it's such a recent conviction. We often will look at something that's happened in the past and see a lot of time go by and look beyond it. But given that it was just in late December, that is the reason for my no vote.
I'm going to just point out that while it is a recent arrest, there's not a conviction involved. To be clear, not yet. So, Cindy?
Can I say again, innocent unless proven guilty? I think I messed that up last week. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
No.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Next then are public hearing resolutions. Item 15, approving 12th Street Pub as a Keno satellite at 100 North 12th Street.
Members of the council, my name's Katrina Coffey. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard, in Omaha, Nebraska. I have with me today the owner of 12th Street Pub, and we're asking for the application to be approved. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 16, approving a memorandum of understanding between Lancaster County and the city for the purpose of replacing the 1988 Justice Council Interlocal Agreement and creating a new Lancaster County City of Lincoln Justice Council.
Is there someone here to speak?
Jeff Kirkpatrick, Lincoln City Attorney. This resolution before you, the memorandum replaces a long-standing one between Lancaster County and the City of Lincoln. It doesn't change the essential focus of the Justice Council or really the essential makeup, but it does make some updates really to bring it in line with the people that have been attending or involved with it. As far as the City Council is involved, I think that the memorandum that's in front of you allows the council to make the decision on whether to have one or two members attend. There has been some discussion, I know, with the city council, and this leaves it up to this council to decide.
Okay. Any questions?
So I just want to clarify for folks that are watching today that the meetings are open to anyone who wants to attend anyway. This just sets the council and the framework for the council.
Right, it is a public meeting, so it's open to everybody to attend, and there is not only the members of the council, but I know it's quite, as you know as well, having attended a number of those meetings, there's a lot of outreach to bring in people, because really the purpose of the Justice Council is not to pass laws or to change policy, it's to increase the communication between all of the affected agencies.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak on this item?
Thank you.
Very much. Next item, please.
All right, next is item 17, waiver 17005, application of Berean Fundamental Church of Lincoln to waive parking lot surfacing requirements on property generally located at 6410 South 70th Street.
Good afternoon. Kent Seacrest representing Lincoln Berean Church, and with me today are Mark Kramer and Jeff Peterson, both executive pastors for the church. This is a waiver of a parking lot surface requirement to allow what we call parking lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4 to be paved, to not be paved under the design standards. Staff had originally recommended the support of the waivers with some time periods. For lots 1, 2, and 4, it would be for 2 years, and for lot area 3 for 5 years. We are asking to remove the time frames because these lots are not required parking. All our required parking under the zoning ordinance is already paved and will be paved. And what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Jeff to talk, and then Mark will follow, and then I'll have some additional comments.
And you have signed in, correct? Very good.
Jeff Peterson at Lincoln Breen Church, 6400 South 70th Street. I want to thank you all for your time just to hear our application for a waiver today. Lincoln Breen started in 1962 with the express purpose of seeking to make a difference in our city for good, for our city and for her people. And we actually started right in the heart of the city. And actually, we're located just a few blocks from here in the building that's now the College of Hair Design. But in 1980, our continued growth forced us to move to somewhere that would allow us to continue to grow and expand. So we bought a field on a dirt road that was South 70th Street, where it intersected Highway 2. And over the last 38 years, the city has continued to grow up around us out in that location. We have sought to be a good neighbors to those emerging neighborhoods that have come, as well as to be good partners with the city of Lincoln in general. In fact, about 13 years ago, as that growth continued, the city came to us and they told us that they needed to take some of our land in order to put in a new street that would allow egress for Edenton and the new Parker's Landing and Pine Lake neighborhoods. And even though that wasn't something that we desired, we worked very positively with the Planning Commission and the planning staff to come up with a mutually beneficial and amicable solution for that. And that's our desire, is to continue to partner well with the city. We were very thankful to have the chance to sit down with planning staff as we're talking about this request. And we really do appreciate the work of the planning staff as they seek to manage the growth of the city and as they seek to do that in a way that is consistent and fair. However, it does seem that there are some extenuating circumstances here that would allow for a waiver. And one of those certainly is the fact that for over 3 decades, we have been in this location without any issues, without any problems, without any complaint. And as Mr. Seacrest said, we have all of the required hard surface parking, and we're talking about overflow parking. And that overflow parking has existed, as I said, for nearly 4 decades without any problems or any complaints. And so it's not hurting anyone presently. But there is a hurt that could come from this, and that is to the mission of what we're about to try to make a positive difference in our city. The reason this matters to us, and it matters very, very much to us, is we don't want to give the message to the more than 6,000 people who are a part of Lincoln Berean that we are being required to take more than $1.2 million and to put that into concrete, which would be used at the very most 3 hours a week, and some of it almost never at all. You see, the only dollars that we have are charitable contribution dollars from those people who call Lincoln Berean our church home. And we believe that those people give those dollars to us as a great stewardship. They give them to us for the express purpose of seeking to invest in impacting our city. And we take that opportunity and that mandate quite seriously, and we're very thankful for what we've been able to do to have a great impact on our city. And we feel like if we were to come back and to say to our people that the city was requiring us to do that, it would be a very discouraging message for our people. We do have with us a few members from our church who would give the same kind of a message. We don't want to take your time to have person after person to come. And we actually haven't even shared this with our entire congregation because we feel like that message would be so disheartening. We don't want to give that message, and we're hoping we'll be able to come back and tell them that this has been waived and that what's been fine for so long continues to be the status quo. We do want to ask just for another moment of indulgence, because I would like for Mark Kramer to be able to share with you just a little bit about how we are engaged with our city and why these dollars matter so we can continue to make a difference.
If I may, you mentioned your members.
I'm going to do that.
Oh, you're going to do that? Okay.
Yes, I'm the chair today. But as soon as he's done.
All right. Mark Kramer, 2601 Bertine Circle in Lincoln. Again, I'm one of the executive pastors. I have a handout here for each one of you that highlights, if you wouldn't mind passing those out for us. One of the things that really is motivational for our people is to engage actively in helping people in our community. I think we've increasingly done that in the past. And our desire going forward is to continue to do not only what we're doing today, but to do more and more. And this sheet just highlights some of the many ways we're actively engaged in our community. We have over 1,000 people who volunteer on a weekly basis. And that is a huge commitment on the part of our people. More than 100,000 hours a year are given in service to our community. We have an active car care ministry that's located near the City Impact Building. We serve 175 people a year, providing free repairs to those who are coming out of Fresh Start, Friendship Home, other of our organizations where, again, transportation is such an important need in our city. We give away 15 vehicles along the way this year. Over $250,000 of direct support from our church goes to nonprofits in our community. And our benevolence fund is somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 each year that we pay for rent, lights, gas, all of those kinds of things for some of the poorest, neediest people in our city. And we continue to want to do more of those kinds of things. And so, from our vantage point, to redirect these funds and to limit our ability to do those good things in our community would be really quite disheartening. So we would really encourage you to take this into consideration along with the other facts when considering this waiver.
Okay, thank you. Now, would anybody who is here today who is in support of this waiver application, please stand up. Thank you very much. You may be seated. And just for equal opportunity, is there anybody here opposed to this waiver application? Thank you. Now, are there any questions from council for these folks?
If you don't mind, I would like to explain a motion to amend that I think has been passed out to you.
Yes.
The original staff recommendation was to put some timeframes on the different segments of lots. And this map on the overhead is trying to show you the four parking areas along the way. We are asking to remove the time frames. Here are the four areas, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure I said those in the right number order, but those are the four areas that we have gravel today and when asked for the waiver. We've done this as maybe we didn't do it as well as we should have and come through the normal process. We thought every time we got a building permit and showed that we were not showing them paved, so we assumed we were approved. When we asked to now come in and pave one of these other areas that aren't asking for a waiver any longer, that's when staff said, we do not have this properly documented as being waived. What we wanted to point out to you along the way is that we have 67 extra stalls that are paved, exceeding the standard. So these, as has been indicated, are what I call the holiday, the special events, the overflow parking that is important to the church but is not used on a regular basis. So all the required parking is paved. The original staff report indicated that typical parking waiver delay is for 4 years. We met with staff and pointed out that that's not quite an accurate statement. Of the last 25 that we could find parking waivers, 80% had no time frame. Of the 5 that did have time frames, 4 of the 5, they were asking for the whole lot, their entire parking area to be waived, and they were granted that. Again, we are not asking for our whole lot, just the excess that we exceed the parking zoning ordinance by. And the 5th one was pretty close to a neighbor, and so it had a time frame. We have very generous setbacks that are far, far away from any normal required setback area. So these are not near the neighbors, in our opinion. And as a result, staff verified that to date, over all these years, no neighbor has ever complained about the dust or the noise of the gravel lots that are the overflow parking area. So of the 20 waivers, we feel we're trying to join the 80% and get unlimited time frame on this. Of course, if the land use changed, then we would have parking requirements. That's a given. But when it's primarily a Saturday night or a Sunday use, as the overflow, we feel we're in compliance with the purpose and have been good neighbors along the way. To planning staff's credit, we voiced our concern and saying we really cannot live with timeframes because of the money. And to the planning staff's recommendation, after meeting with us and hearing our facts and figures, they indicated that they would not object to our waiver now. And so as a result, we worked that out. We rewrote the motion to amend that's in front of you Staff has reviewed that and has indicated that is consistent with what we met with planning and law, that they agreed that they would not object. So this is removing the timeframes, and it's adding some extra conditions. If we do have a dust problem, it will be on the church's need to water that down. And it also added the language that this waiver can be revoked by the council if we do create a dust or a noise problem. So it's very clear that we're on notice, that it's not a permanent. It could be removed by you after a notice and hearing at the council level, so that we understand that we might have to, if we're not good neighbors and can't maintain it properly, that you could ask us and require us to pave it. So with that, we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Seacrest? Jane?
Could you tell us, are these areas under consideration already graded and gravel on them currently?
Yeah, all of the lots have been existing for quite some period of time. As Mr. Seacrest said, the only reason this came up is because we actually added additional hard surface parking, and that kind of brought everything under review, and somewhere along the way, some things were missed in terms of that documentation. But there's no new parking that has been created in this. It's all previously existing.
So what is the church plan? Do you occasionally water the gravel and the roads when it gets a little too dusty, or what have your practices been in the past?
Our staff does do a good job of maintaining all of those lots, and again, we do have very unusual setbacks. If you look on the north side to Edenton, on the east side, even where the city brought in Ashbrook Drive, we still have considerable setbacks. You have Highway 2 and then you have 70th Street. So we're not in any sort of a situation where we're actually close proximity to anyone. And usually the way those lots work, our people are just simply coming in there when there is an overflow, when there's a need for that, just pulling in parking and then getting right back on the hard surface roads. So there really is not much of a dust condition that's ever created.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Carl?
Yes, thanks for being here, and your list of involvement in the community is extensive, and thanks for what you do. And you're a growing congregation, and so any of these lots, do you envision expanding the church facilities into where they might be?
Are we envisioning expanding the parking or the facilities itself?
The buildings. Yeah.
I don't imagine that would happen for the long term. It could, but we did a pretty large building project 10 years ago that increased our auditorium and allowed us to have a lot more square footage. So we're trying everything we can to stay within that existing square footage at this point in time, and we believe we have adequate space to continue to grow for some time. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Kramer?
Thank you very much.
Seacrest? Do you have any other questions?
I do, Mr. C.
He's got one, okay.
No, actually, I'd like to speak with.
Staff question?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you very much.
David Carey with the Planning Department.
Thank you, David, for coming up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Seacrest testified that he'd spoke with you and you'd reviewed these documents. Could you give me a quick summary? Do you agree with that?
Sure,
What do you
yeah.
see as issues? And I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, we're in agreement. I think what's really the only point of contention really was that at the point in time of the most recent discussion, staff decided not to change its staff report, mainly because it was determined that it would make the most sense to bring this discussion in front of you to make a determination of the appropriateness of the waiver, and also to have some consistency with past staff positions on this. But the points being made by the applicant are very valid, and we are in agreement with. We are not going to oppose the waiver. The facts are that the required amount of parking is all paved. That is not a typical situation with other situations like this. That's probably the biggest point to be made here. And the setbacks, as were brought up, they are quite significant. And the fact is that there haven't been any complaints that we know of. So there's a lot of factors that make this unique, and that is why we would not be opposed to the waiver.
In the staff report, the original staff report, where there was not support for this, you have an analysis that suggests there is a timeline. The applicant said that that's not actually true. Can you help us understand why those two facts don't line up?
As far as the timeline for the existing conditions?
For waivers, that
Well,
there's a
the-
time period, a finite time period for waivers, and
I think what we're talking about is that the typical situation with churches in particular for paving of required parking is that we have been putting those timelines on them, whether it be 2 or 3 or 5 years, depending on what the situation is. That is exactly what was being discussed with the applicant, and we were treating this fairly similarly to other past applications for this type of a waiver. And then as we got further into this, the points being made about the required parking being all paved, either already or with this latest improvement, that made this proposal different than what these other past applications were proposing. And that is really where we landed on this.
I'm not sure I followed that, but I guess what I want to understand is, to be consistent with how you've treated churches, you would impose a timeline, but when you look at parking waivers in general, most of the time you don't require a timeline?
The examples that we provided in the staff report were trying to be consistent with other churches that have come in for similar waivers for paving of required parking. So where we started with this was the consistency factor that we started with was to continue to do what we have done in the past, which is to put some type of time frame on it. And then as we talked further about it, as we got more into the process here, that I would basically say that we became convinced that the argument and points being made by the applicant were valid. And so that's why we landed on with the position that we're taking now.
Definitely would be a hardship for any nonprofit. So I guess my question is, what are the implications of approval going forward
Right.
for other kinds of applicants citywide?
Right, and that's a big part of the reason why we were hesitant on this in the first place. I think that what this means is that if a similar proposal came forward and the applicant was providing all their required parking to be paved and then wanted to have further overflow parking and included some level of separation from other uses that could see that as a nuisance with the dust issues when it's dry out with gravel parking, we would be applying this type of finding to those situations. What we feel is that we're not going to have very many of those, because most of the situations that we deal with are in the built environment, and there's a lot of uses that are pretty much right adjacent to the properties that we're talking about. And so the uniqueness factor probably is not going to apply, but when it does, what moving forward this means is that we'll probably be applying this position.
But this is a situation where you've got 200 and 400 foot setbacks to nearest
Correct.
residential, so it's unlikely that we're another church, like you said, in maybe a core neighborhood was trying to have a gravel parking
Right.
lot, you would apply this standard because it doesn't have the same set of mitigating factors for neighbors with dust.
Correct. And that is how I feel is how we would handle that. Certainly the possibility of this happening on another site where a large church sites themselves on the edge of the community and the community grows around it, but maintains a large property, this could apply in those situations.
Thank you.
Yep.
John?
Yeah, Mr. Carey, I believe we also have the dust ordinances and so forth under health ordinances, what have you. And so I would tend to ask that you consider going with this philosophy you have here, that where it's excess parking, not part of a required parking level, that the assumed rule of thumb is that you allow that as a gravelled lot, and subject to the fact they have to adhere to the dust control standards.
We certainly can have that discussion with the health department. I wouldn't want to speak for them without them here to talk about what type of procedures they'd want to take to address situations. I think a lot of what they do is they deal with on a complaint basis, which is fairly typical. So I don't think we'd want to take that option away if there did become complaints that came upon us for certain situations.
I could concur with that, requiring the paving if there were a number of complaints or the church didn't do that. But I think much like the Berean Church, there are other churches that have a number of community efforts, and they've got precious dollars there. And so I'd like to see us, from that standpoint, assist those congregations in the future.
Well, and what's
probably
also
won't happen, but I'd rather have that be the rule of thumb.
Okay. Other staff questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Would
you.
anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next are our public hearing ordinances second reading. Item 18, text amendment 18001, amending section 27.63.630 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to indoor theaters as a permitted special use limited to not more than one indoor theater in the B2 district with no more than 250 seats.
David Carey with the Planning Department. Before you this evening to come back with a cleanup item that despite all of our efforts and work on the topic of theaters recently, it became aware to us fairly recently that we omitted the inclusion of the B2 district in one of the points to be made for what was a new item that came out of our work recently about theaters to allow for kind of niche theaters of 250 seats or lower in the B2 and B3. We omitted B2, which was absolutely not the intention. We wanted to include B2, and this item is meant to correct that and to make sure that we are correctly stating that in the ordinance.
Questions? Carl?
Yes, just so people understand, what's the difference between B2 and B3?
B2 is a little bit more what would be considered a, typically, not always, but typically larger lots, more suburban in nature. B3 is considered a little bit more of the, in the older areas, built environment, often, not always, but often smaller lots compared to the B2. So they are different districts, but the idea in the process of discussing the theater topic was that to allow for some opportunities in both those areas for these niche theaters that are smaller in size and limited to one screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Would
you.
anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 19, change of zone 17038, application of Brett Joseph for a change from R2 residential to RT residential transition on property generally located at 6630 Star Street.
Anyone here wishes to speak to this item?
There might be some.
Go ahead.
There she is.
Jamie Stevens, 256 North Street, Greenwood, Nebraska. Council, my name is Jamie Stevens. My husband Jeff and I own the Strawberry Patch Salon. We are asking you to rezone to RT. Our business we have owned for 10.5 years. The business has actually been in operation for 44 years in Northeast Nebraska, or Northeast Lincoln. So we would like to continue working in Northeast Lincoln. So that's why we have purchased this house.
Okay, any questions? And so the business you say has been in how long?
44 years.
At this location or another location?
Just in Northeast Lincoln.
But not at this?
No, another,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
All right, next is item 20, change of zone 17032, application of Lynette and Jeffrey Hellerich for a change from R2 residential with landmark district overlay to R2 residential with individual landmark and landmark district overlay to designate the Seidels House as a historic landmark on property generally located at 2110 A Street.
I'm Lynette Hellerick. I live at 2110 A Street, and I applied for my landmark designation to restore this home to its original beauty.
Okay, are there questions? Seeing none?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Carl?
In reading the information, I saw that there was a consideration about being a bed and breakfast, but then it sounded like that was no longer being considered.
We've postponed that until the house is complete.
Okay.
It's been vacant for 20 years, and we're in the process of restoring it. We just don't think it was ready for something like that just yet,
Well,
but maybe in the future.
thanks for taking on. I mean, this house is a
82
landmark in our
8,200
community.
square feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I am up here to be a poor version of Ed Zimmer this evening, and I'm sincere about that. I do have some images just to kind of let everybody see what type of structure we're dealing with and why this is one step to make sure that this structure is maintained and improved to its deserved level. Very much the Seidos House, very much a historic structure as it was constructed. This is today. Very large in nature. Does bring with it challenges because of its size, but it is something that we're pleased to have the ability to give it landmark status. Another picture, I think it really starts to come across when you look at the inside and how what a quality structure this is, and that it's a value to the neighborhood. Just a couple more images here, just the woodworking, and then with that, I think we'll leave it at that and just let you know that we are in support of this action.
Questions? John?
Those photographs look great. Did you do that interior improvement, or?
Actually, the interior is going through a few more improvements. We're actually taking off a lot of the paint that was painted over the quarter sawn wood inside of it, and we are restoring the 1950s lighting that was changed by the chancellors back to the 1913s lighting. So the restoration is going to go for a period, put the tin ceilings back in, restore the wood floors that are in it, we're going to replace the stone fireplace rather than what's in it at this point. So it's going through some beautification. We've already did the roof. We've already painted it. We've restored the cement around the home itself on the structure. So we thought that was very necessary. It's going to be going through, and we're going to be putting up the wrought iron fences and doing the landscaping by April. So.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Your paint looks great.
All right, Benny?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I live in the neighborhood, and I walk by that house a lot. I have for years, and it's just an incredible improvement already. I'm just looking forward to you doing more to it. Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Next item, please.
That concludes our public hearing. We can move into the voting session.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to, I think this is a time to bring forth a motion to reconsider, and this would be on the public hearing we had, or the vote we had 2 weeks ago at our meeting for the Royal Grove application. And my computer died, so I didn't write down the resolution number, but.
I'll second the motion.
Do you have the resolution number handy there, Cindy?
I do.
It just died.
That's okay.
It's 18R
I'm sorry,
something, I know
there's
that.
not a resolution number because
It's-
it's a liquor application.
Hunky Dory LLC doing business as
Thank you.
Royal Grove.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we reconsider this. Discussion, please. Cindy?
So I just want to say, to make so that everyone's clear, that the motion to reconsider tonight, it's just for that, to put it on the agenda for a week from now, as I understand, so that it can be published once again to the public. And I'm unclear whether we want to, whether your motion is to have hearing on it. I understand there's some updated information that may be available to us.
We need to have hearing. If
Okay.
we're going to do it, we need to have a hearing.
Okay. And I agree with that. Thank you.
And I know we're going to have the public hearing. I think there was just some other information was discovered on the history of the parking areas and so forth. So we have a clear indication right now, so we can discuss it next week.
Other discussion on the motion?
Yeah, as the one who opposed the motion last time, I'm supportive of it. If there's a way for us to find, for them to be able to run their business over the next few weeks until zoning issues get fully heard, that would be, I think, a good thing if that's at all possible. So give us some time to figure that out.
Okay. On the motion to reconsider, please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. All right, then, for voting today, we can go to item 15, approving 12th Street Pub as a Keno satellite at 100 North 12th Street, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Carl, seconded by John. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 16 is the memorandum of understanding between the county and the city, introduced by Eskridge.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Carl, seconded by Jane. Discussion? Please call the
Mr.
roll.
Chair.
Oop.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am really impressed with the work that the Justice Council is doing. I'm really glad to see that it was reestablished and looking at ways to address the issues in our community having to do with mental health issues and jail overcrowding and so forth. And Jane and I have attended a number of those meetings, and I think they're making great progress. So I totally support this.
Okay, please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 17 is waiver 17005, application of the Berean Church, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Benny, seconded by Carl. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make motion to amend number 1.
Second?
And
Moved by John, seconded by Carl.
this is the one that was presented this evening by Mr. Seacrest.
The substitute resolution.
Substitute resolution that removes that time constraint.
Okay. Discussion on the substitute resolution. Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Okay, now further discussion on the now made motion. I will say, you're doing good things, and we want to keep you doing good things, and it all fits within a framework that makes sense to me. Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Public hearing ordinances second reading are items 18 through 20. Item
happen
21.
much.
Ordinances third reading. Item 21, approving an amendment to the Lincoln Municipal Code to include an exception for cooking recirculating systems, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by John, seconded by Carl. Discussion. Very good. I will say that I appreciate the support of the council members on this item. I think it helps small businesses, specifically one small business. But sometimes these things are only brought forward to our attention by one small business. And it'll have a broader impact than just this. So please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Resolutions on first reading are items 22 through 27. Our ordinances on first reading are items 28 through 38. Our pending list date certain are items 39 and 40. Our regular pending list are items 41 through 46. We did have a request on items 41 and 42 by the applicant to withdraw these items.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Cindy, seconded by Jane. Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time, since it is an open microphone night.
Okay, before I accept a motion to adjourn, I'd like to say to the scouts here, if you wish to remain, I'm sure council members will make themselves available if you'd like to talk to anyone.
Okay. Well, not seeing anyone hopping forward here, especially our council, or excuse me, our scout members, I would move for adjournment.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Carl. Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Eskridge? Motion carried, 7-0.
Adjourned.